Hey everyone! Not really sure how to do introductions as this is my first tutorial video, so I will just jump right into it. I'm going to be showing you how to make the most out of customizing clothes in Disney's Dreamlight Valley and how to make the dress pictured in the thumbnail. By the way, I play on PS5, so keep that in mind when I'm explaining the controls. I'll start with the basics and eventually move on to show you how I made the dress. If you already know how to use the design tools and just want to see how to make the dress, skip to about the 3.5 minute mark. First, I'll say that if you're someone who mostly plays at nighttime, head to Moana's realm if you have it unlocked to design your clothes. It's always light so you can see your designs better, plus it never rains and you don't have the other characters getting in your way. This is the dress that I'll be showing you how to make. You don't have to follow my design exactly. Feel free to choose different colors or use your own creative touch as I explain the process. Once you're ready to start designing, head to your wardrobe and select the Customize option at the top left. Then select Add New and you will see a variety of plain clothes to choose from. For this tutorial I'm using the long sleeve dress, but this design will also work on the strapless dress. Once you're in the design screen, it's going to look like this. There's a menu bar to the left where you can add motifs using the plus sign and change the base color of your dress using the button at the bottom. At the top of the menu bar, you'll see that you can use a maximum of 50 layers. Keep that in mind because they do run out pretty quickly. Once you have a motif selected, you'll see this circular menu where you can resize, rotate, and change the color. There are certain motifs that don't allow you to change the color though. If you select the cube, it's going to bring up another menu bar at the top of your screen with some more advanced settings to choose from. The first option flips your motif around, and the second option duplicates your motif so you have two, and you can adjust the position of both once you exit out of the cube menu. The scissors will create a cutout in the shape of the motif you're using, but it only works if you have another motif under it. The dots next to the scissors will multiply your motif so that your dress is covered in them. Selecting this also automatically selects the globe setting to the very right. The globe setting makes the motif run around the dress smoothly and also enables you to make it larger than you normally could. If you select the two arrows with the multiple settings selected at the same time, you'll see that it removes the globe setting, and you'll be able to make the motifs much smaller. Lastly, if you want to delete a motif, exit out of the circular menu and scroll down to it without having it selected, and press square. One more thing I'll say before moving on is making sure you exit out of the design mode and save your game at least every 10 minutes or so. Maybe even less if you experience a lot of crashes. Now finally, let's get to designing the dress. I'm going with a light shade of blue for the base color, but feel free to use whatever color you like. Then I'm going to use the triangle shape motif to create the illusion of a slit going down the middle of the dress. I'm going to use a gold color, but again, feel free to use whatever color you like. Then I'll use the globe setting so that I can enlarge it all the way. You can start the slit wherever you like, but I usually like to make it start right below the waistline. You'll see that there's some empty space under the dress, but if you start the slit lower so that it reaches the bottom of the dress, you won't have to do this next part. If you've started below the waistline, what you'll do now is duplicate the triangle. Then exit out of the motif and select the extra one that will be at the top of your layers. Align the extra triangle so that it meets the bottom of the dress and lines up smoothly with the first triangle. Once you've done that, you'll just want to duplicate it again so that you get the exact same on the other side. Sometimes you have to select the duplicate and adjust it a little bit, but most of the time it's fine. Now go back into the motifs to select another triangle, this time rotating it upside down as best as you can. Once you feel like it's pretty straight, use the globe setting again, then position it so that it sits over the chest, centered. This can take a little time to get right. Now that we have a good base design, we can start decorating the dress. My personal favourite motifs are these vine-looking ones and this rose to match. For now, we're going to use the vine motifs to line the sides of the triangle. Once you have the vine selected, use the globe setting and then you can just really play around with the size and positioning until you think it looks good. I like to position it so that part of the vine wraps around the waist a little bit. Once you have it lined up the way you want it, just go into the cube menu and duplicate it. And I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but sometimes when I duplicate certain motifs, it looks like they aren't lined up at all, but as soon as I exit out of the motif, it snaps back into the right position, so don't panic. Now just keep adding the vines using this process until you've lined the whole triangle. Remember to keep duplicating them and selecting the duplicate from the top of the layers. You can play around with the size, flip and rotation tool a bit to get them the way you want. I also like adding some vines that are the same color as the base of the dress on top, but slightly out of line to make the detail look more intricate. And this is how it's looking so far. Now for the top half of the dress. Again, I'm going to use the vines to line the triangle on the chest. Just align it until you think it looks good. It's probably going to look different on every dress that you make. Once you've done that, head back into the motif menu and select the larger gradient. Use the globe setting again and make it the same color as the base of your dress but darker, so I'm using a darker blue color. Now rotate to the back of the dress and try to line it up the way I am as best as you can. I also forgot to mention that you should enlarge it all the way. Then duplicate the gradient. When you come to the front of the dress, you'll see that it looks like this, but if it doesn't, just keep trying to adjust it until it does. It can be quite finicky and a little bit of a pain. Once it looks good, use another gradient, but this time rotate it upside down as best as you can so that it lines up with the angle of the first gradient. Then use the globe setting again and enlarge it all the way. Once you've enlarged it, align it to the first gradient so that they blend smoothly and duplicate it. After that, go into your layers and find the top halves of the gradient. Then, without selecting them, press and hold to drag them down to the bottom of your layers. This is so that you can still see the gradient on the base of the dress without covering up the chest. Alternatively, if you don't want to drag the layers, you can also just do the gradients before you do anything else. I like leaving the bottom half of the gradients on top because to me it looks kind of like a mesh drape, but if you don't like them, you can also just move those to the bottom as well. If you like, you can add some decorations to the back of the dress, but eventually I just decided not to and left it bare. Finally, for the sleeves, I'm going to use this rose motif with the globe setting and enlarge it to the full size. After that, you can place it over the sleeve and play around with the rotation and any other tools to make it look nice. I should also mention that if you've gone with a strapless dress, then you don't have to worry about the rest of this video. Now, I also like using gradients on the sleeves to give them a mesh look. It's a little tricky to get the positioning right, especially on console, but if you manage to get it, I do think it looks really nice. I usually just have to rotate, resize, and play with it for a little while. And I'm just using the same color that I did for my other gradients. Then, if you've done that, you'll want to drag those layers down to the bottom again. And that is the final look for the dress. I hope you like it and that it was easy enough to follow along. Again, this is my first tutorial video ever, so sorry if I missed anything. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. These are some of the other dresses I've made, which I'd love to do a tutorial for, but it would be really hard for some of these since I mostly just wing it. Honestly, my best advice is to just keep messing with the tools and the settings. I cut this video a lot, but what you don't see is how much time I really spent rotating and positioning things to get them right. Anyways, that just about concludes the video for today, so thanks for watching and I hope it was helpful.